だご存じない方もいっぱいいらっしゃると思いますんで、はい、じゃあ出しましょう。バン。
I swear that I cannot manipulate time, but I do agree that it's kind of freaky.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update, and today it's once again Tuesday, which means we've got a lot of new reveals for Overdress. And this time we've got the reveal of two new right lines for Dragon Empire as well as Brandt Gate. And I'm gonna be very honest, these reveals are kind of unexpected, as the Dragon Empire one definitely shakes up the power level of the nation. And the Brandt Gate one, yeah, it's kind of interesting because it builds upon the new mechanic that Brandt Gate already got with the new set orders, but then it also introduces the new token, which I didn't expect. So without further ado, let's jump straight into these card reveals and actually see what these cards can do for the respective nation, as there is plenty enough to talk about in today's video. So we're going to start off with the more easier one, and that's are going to be the Dragon Empire cards themselves. So for the right line, we of course have their new starter, which is Double Gun of Duststorm Bard. It's just a generic starter, so there's nothing really to explain here. But if we go up the right line, we see the Grade 1, which is Gunning of Duststorm Nigel. And Nigel has the abilities, although when this unit is rode upon by Cataclysmic Bullet of Duststorm Render, Soul Charge 1. So we see some more Soul Charge generating in this right line, so we can assume that this new archetype is gonna use a lot of soul, or at least more than your typical one. This doesn't really tell us anything. The more interesting part, however, is the second effect, which is Auto on Rearguard Circle. When your opponent's rearguard is retired during your main phase, cost counterblast 1 and retire this unit. Choose one of your opponent's rearguards and retire it. So this basically combos off of another unit's retire effect. If you retire something in the main phase, you can activate this and then sack this unit off for a counterblast to then sack another unit of your opponent's side of the field. Now, in a generic sense, this doesn't sound as great as a trade-off because it's a 1-for-1 and you needed to pay an extra counterblast. But depending on your playstyle or what type of tech choices you have, this could actually be alright. But in this particular new deck, this is actually really useful. So let's talk about the other cards so you have a better understanding of where this grade 1 slots in the playstyle. So first off, we of course have the grade 2 of this right line, which is Cataclysmic Bullet of Duststorm Render. And Render has the abilities, although when this unit is rode upon by Heavy Artillery of Duststorm Eugene, draw a card, choose up to one card from your drop and put it into your soul. So we see that the grade 1 can generate a soul when it's rode upon. Then this grade 2 can also generate a soul if we are then again riding up in the right chain. Now, you might think to yourself, how am I supposed to get cards in the drop zone in the early game? You get that if you use the right deck because you're discarding from hand. This is already pretty nice because it means we get an extra free plus because you draw a card for free and you get that extra soul for free as well. So that's already nice. But then we get to its other ability, which is Auto on Vanguard Rearguard Circle. When this unit attacks, if your opponent has 2 or less rearguards, cost counterblast 1, Soul Charge 1, and this unit gets power plus 5 until the end of the battle. So here we see even more Soul Charge generating, but it costs a counterblast. Now, depending on how the deck revolves, you could make the argument that trading 1 counterblast for 1 soul and 5k power might be an equal trade, but it all depends on the situation and if you really need it or not, and if you need to use your counterblast for other situations. But still, doesn't really sound all that amazing, but it all makes sense if we're gonna take a look at the new grade 3. So here we have the new main grade 3, which is Heavy Artillery of Duststorm Eugene. And Eugene has the following abilities. Act on Vanguard Circle once a turn, cost rest 2 rearguards, choose one of your opponent's rearguards, retire it, and this unit gets power plus 10 until the end of turn. So you can rest 2 rearguards to snipe one of your opponent's rearguards, and you get an extra 10k power. Now, depending on the situation, this might or might not sound all that great, because you need to rest 2 of your rearguards. Now the 10k power can make up for if you rest a booster behind the Vanguard, so you don't lose on actual power. Interesting enough, it doesn't cost you any actual resources, so you can do this turn after turn after turn without putting a strain on your Soul Blast or Counter Blast, which is nice. But this is actually where we see the use of the Grade 1, because this effect is a main phase retire effect, so we can rest 2 rearguards and then snipe one of our opponent's rearguards. This then will immediately activate the Grade 1, so we can retire the Grade 1 to retire another unit of our opponent's rearguards. And because we need to retire the Grade 1, if we rest the Grade 1, we can then retire that Grade 1, meaning we somewhat gain more value out of the rested rearguards themselves, and we don't lose on potential attackers or boosters, because we can then immediately call something new to the field, which is actually pretty nice. So we have this inherent synergy between the Grade 1 and this main Grade 3. But we also have the other effect, which is act on Vanguard Circle once a turn. If your opponent's rearguard was retired this turn, cost Soul Blast 5, look at the same number of cards on the top of your deck as the number of your opponent's open rearguard circle, choose any number of unit cards from among them, call them to the rearguard circle, and put the rest into your soul. So this is effectively another multi-attack skill that interacts with your opponent's side of the field, because you get more choices the more units you retired of your opponent's side of the field. And this is where the Grade 1 really comes into play, because you want to retire as many cards on your opponent's side of the field, so you might not really care about the minus you make with the Grade 1, as long as you can then make up for it with the potential multi-attack skill of this Grade 3. And this also shows why we need to generate all the soul with the right line itself, because we need a Soul Blast 5 to activate this skill. And with the right line itself, we can fulfill the 5 soul at least once, because we have the Grade 0, the Grade 1, and the Grade 2. The Grade 1 on the right by the Grade 2 gets another soul, which is 4 soul, and the Grade 2, once you write into the Grade 3, generates your 5th soul, so you will have 5 soul. Now, with the Grade 2 on attack skill, you can generate more soul, and with the Grade 3, all the units you don't call can go towards a soul. So depending on how many cards you can check on the top of your deck, you could potentially keep fueling his own ability every single turn, while also at least generating 1 or potentially 2 extra attacks every single time. We can see this very interesting Dragon Empire deck being formed here, because we have the generic retire effects, and the best way to circumvent that from your opponent's side of the field is to not call rearguards, so they don't plus off your rearguards. But if they don't call rearguards, or rearguards that remove themselves at the end of the turn, so your Dragon Empire opponent cannot plus off of you, you then give them free extra multi-attacks, or at least more consistent options for the multi-attack plays, and that's something you don't want to do. So you're forced to call more cards to the field, but because you're calling cards to the field, you walk straight into the retire effect. So it's a very interesting approach to the problem that Dragon Empire typically has with these type of strategies to circumvent retire. So I'm kind of curious how this might play out. With these cards discussed, let's talk about the new Brandt Gate archetype, because this is where the interesting thing is. This is where the juicy part of the video lies, because they introduce somewhat of 2 new mechanics. So let's talk about these cards and go over these new type of additions to the game itself. So first off, we have their starter, which is Cardinal Fang Puffy, and it's just a generic starter. But then if we go up the right line, we see a Grade 1, which is Cardinal Noid Rodis. And Rodis has the ability, auto, when this unit is placed on the Vanguard Circle, search your deck for up to 1 world card, review it, and put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. This is very interesting, because this is basically the exact same skill as the Grade 1 from the starter deck for Brandt Gate. The only difference is that the starter deck Grade 1 gets you a prison card, and this one gets you a world card. So we have a brand new order card for Brandt Gate once again, and we will go over in a minute what world cards actually are. So first off, let's finish up this card. It also has the ability continuous of rearguard circle. During the battle this unit attacked or boost, if your world is Dark Knight or Abyssal Dark Knight, this unit gets power plus 2k. So it can once again become a 10k booster or attacker. It's not really that special. The more important thing is it gets you a world card. So let's go over this, because we already heard the name Dark Knight and Abyssal Dark Knight. So we have this Grade 2 set order world card. So important thing to note here is that these world cards are just like the prison cards. They are set orders and they function the exact same way. But of course they have their own unique effect. The prison cards have the imprison mechanic. These world cards are a little bit different. Because here we have Hallowing Moonlit Night, and this World Order card has the ability, play this with cost Soul Blast 1. So it costs a Soul Blast to just activate the ability. Although, when this card is put into the order zone, draw a card. So it's a nice draw effect. Now, it's not an actual plus. It's basically a cycle, because you lose the order card from hand as it's placed onto the field, and it's not the same as actually having a unit onto the board. This is just to help facilitate conditions for your other cards, like we just seen with the Grade 1, that need specific worlds to gain the extra 2k power. So I don't see this as a plus. I see this more as a cycle, because you get the card back into your hand, but it costs you a Soul Blast to do so. But then it also has another effect, which is continuous in order zone. If your order zone only has world cards, the following effects are active according to the number of cards in your order zone. 1 card, your world becomes Dark Knight. 2 or more cards, your world becomes Abyssal Dark Knight. So to clarify what this actually means, this effect will only activate if you only have world cards in your order zone. So if you put a prison card into your order zone, this whole continuous effect will not activate at all, because you have a non-world order in your order zone. And then, of course, according to the amount of worlds you have in your order zone, then the following effects will activate. And it's either your world is seen as Dark Knight, or your world will be seen as Abyssal Dark Knight. And we've seen that depending on what type of world you are, different effects will activate. And as for the Grade 1, it doesn't really matter. As long as it's either Dark Knight or Abyssal Dark Knight, it gains plus 2k power. But we're going to see cards that will do something else if you are either Dark Knight or in Abyssal Dark Knight. But this isn't the only world order card that we've got, because we also got a new Grade 3 World Order, which is In the Darkness Nobody Knows, and its effect is basically the exact same, but the only difference is that its on-place effect is a bit different, because it has play this with cost Soul Blast 1, it's the same cost, but then although, when this card is put into the order zone, choose one of your opponent's front row rearguards and retire it. So where the Grade 2 allows you to draw a card, this retires a front row rearguard. That's the main difference. They both cost a Soul Blast, they both are world orders, and they both have the same continuous order zone effect, whereas if your order zone has only world cards, the following effects are active according to the number of cards in your order zone. 1 card, your world becomes Dark Knight. 2 or more cards, your world becomes Abyssal Dark Knight. So depending on your playstyle, you might like one of the other. I'm personally more fan of the draw effect, as the draw effect allows you to cycle faster through your deck and at least get to your world orders, because yes, you can get 1 world order with the Grade 1, but the second one, you need to hard draw into it. So that means you need to run a significant amount of world orders to actually draw into it, or you need a hard mulligan into it, and then the Grade 2 might be a bit better because it allows you to draw and dig further into your deck to at least get to that second world order. But let's go over the other units, because we have a couple of units that make sense of why we're doing and playing with these world orders at all. So first off, if we go up the right line, we see the Grade 2, which is Cardinal Noid Cubicia. And Cubicia has the ability, although on Vanguard Circle, when a world is put into your order zone, choose one of your units and it gets power plus 5k until the end of turn. So this synergizes nicely with the Grade 1, because the Grade 1 can get you the Grade 2 world order if you want to, and that means that the moment that you write this thing, you can immediately play that Grade 2 world order and then activate this ability to give one of your units plus 5k power, and it can give it to himself, or it can give one to your rearguards, so you can be a bit more aggressive in the early game. This is also a nice addition and a plus side to playing the Grade 2 over the Grade 3. But then it also has the secondary effect, which is continuous on Vanguard Circle. During your turn, if your world is Abyssal Dark Knight, this unit gets power plus 5k. So on the Vanguard Circle, you need to have 2 world orders in your order zone to get this unit an extra 5k power. So if you only have 1 order, this is just a 10k rearguard. If you have 2 world orders, then it becomes 15k. So this is another reason why you need to play more world orders, so you can consistently get into that abyssal state, so your units become more powerful. But this isn't enough reason to push for more world orders in your deck. That will all come into place if we take a look at the main Grade 3. Because the main Grade 3 is Cardinal Deus or Fist. And Or Fist has the abilities continues on Vanguard or Vanguard Circle. During your turn, if your world is Dark Knight or Abyssal Dark Knight, this unit gets power plus 5k. So it can be an 18k beater or attacker, and this doesn't matter if you have only 1 world order or 2 world orders, so this is basically always active because you use the right line, so that's fine. But then we get his secondary effect, which is pretty interesting, because that's act on Vanguard Circle. If your world is Abyssal Dark Knight, cost counterblast 2, and call up to 3 Shadow Army tokens to the rearguard circle. Your world changes when you play a specific order. Shadow Army has power plus 15k and boost. So here we see the artwork for the Shadow Army, and as we've seen, they're great ones with boost, 1 critical, 15k power, no intercept, no shield value. So they allow you to pump up your columns with an extra 15k power, and as soon as you call free Shadow Army token, you can fill out your entire back row, or you can promote them to the front row if you don't have the attackers themselves, because they can hit decent enough as 15k attackers. So effectively, this Vanguard, this new grade 3, is a token generator which creates 45k power onto the board in form of free bodies for 2 counterblasts. Now that's actually pretty good, because you can say that that's generating free cards for 2 counterblasts, so that's better than your typical value that you will get for counterblast 1 to draw a card, as this is somewhat equal to counterblast 2 draw free cards, depending on how you want to view it. So overall this can be pretty decent, but this is where we run into the problems with this archetype, because so far what we've seen, it looks pretty awesome. We have this new world order mechanic to it, and we have this now also these tokens, which means we have this more aggressive in the pressure in the mid to late game. But as we see, this is just a free attack archetype, just like the Dragon Empire deck, and Dragon Empire deck is seen as the worst starter deck out of the 5, but this Dragon Empire starter deck has the upside that it's very aggressive in the early game, because you will have that consistent access to your Trickster and Varina, and this can create high attack numbers and immediately swing for very impressive numbers with a bit of control to it. The problem what I see with this Brandt Gate archetype is that they don't have that early aggression. Their early game is just to set up for the potential late game, as you go fetch your world order, you may draw a little bit, then your grade 2 gate turn, you can give 5k power if you want to, but that's not really on par that we see with the Dragon Empire one. And then on your turn 3, you could potentially create these free tokens. But to do that, we need to specifically have 2 world orders active. If we do not have that, we cannot do anything of this nature. So we won't do anything. And to compensate for that, we need to run a significant amount of world orders to increase the consistency of always be able to get into the Abyssal Dark Knight state, so we can create these orders themselves, which means we are forced to run an X amount of dead cards in our deck, because the moment that we already have 2 world orders into the order zone, the other world orders are kind of irrelevant at this point. Yes, they have the on-place effect for Soul Blasters, you can retire a unit or you can draw a card, but keep in mind, you also lose a card in the process. So currently, the deck looks pretty awesome and pretty sweet in my honest opinion, the way how it functions and the way how it plays out. But the issue is, the support isn't there just yet. But I'm optimistic that that definitely will be the case, as these are just the first reveals of this archetype, and there's still plenty of room left to improve on that playstyle. Now this is all the reveals that we got for this set so far, but there's one more interesting update they revealed, because they showcased the artwork for set 2. And for set 2, they revealed this. And this basically confirms that yes, we're going to get yet another form for Varina. So this will be the 3rd Varina that we're going to get so far. So we have the Fire Varina from the starter deck, the Thunder Varina from set 1, and now this Water Varina for set 2. What they also confirmed for this set is that they're going to improve on the builds that from the starter decks themselves, and I believe also from the new builds from the main set from set 1. But on top of that, they are going to introduce 2 new ride lines, might or might not indirectly or directly improve on those archetypes as well. So I'm very curious what direction they're going to take and how they're going to improve other things. So with that said, let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of these new reveals. Are you excited for the new Dragon Empire archetype? Are you excited for this new Cardinal Brandt Gate playstyle with the world orders? Honestly, currently they don't really look that powerful, but I can definitely see the potential within these new tokens and these new world orders themselves, as they are pretty interesting. So let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, this video has been brought to you by our lovely patrons over at patreon.com/VanguardInsider. You guys are amazing. If you want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, you can simply go to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one!